prime thing is you have to win.
There you go. There you go. That's what I'm talking about. Hey, Mark, settle down a little bit.
All right. Welcome back to another episode of the Just Win podcast. The Raiders just had a devastating loss in which they lost to the Chicago Bears 26-25 at home. Geno Smith threw 3 interceptions, put the Raiders in a hole, but they kept coming back. They got the lead, but in the end, Caleb Williams was able to drive the Bears in for a game-winning drive, and the Raiders got into field goal position but had a field goal blocked at the end. So they lost the game. Marshall, what do you think? What are your initial impressions?
Well, listen, since it's a loss, let's just get all the stats and the facts straight. It was 25-24, but also just snatching defeat from the jaws of victory. Just an unfortunate way to lose that game. So many opportunities. And I just get this overwhelming sense that for whatever reason, this team right now, one unit struggles, another unit plays well, but together they don't do enough to win. So today, all these weeks leading up to this, what's wrong with the O-line? Like, why aren't they protecting? Why aren't they blocking? And yeah, there were some issues during the game today, and we'll talk about those. But overall, I think they had a pretty good day. The reintroduction of JPJ, Jackson Powers-Johnson, was huge. He was flying around. You could see his presence, his physicality was much missed, and that led to Ashton Jeanty having 138 on the ground. The Genty we've been clamoring for, hoping for. Finally, he's there. 138 on the ground, a touchdown. 2 catches in the red zone, 2 touchdowns. Like the guy, as he was promised, because the O-line held up their end of the bargain today. And what happens? Geno Smith just has a wild day. It seemed like Kevin Byard had just like a revenge plot against him because he was just stalking him all game. 2 bad picks across the middle against Byard, and then another one, a low one that misses, and just a rough day from Geno. And these are just ways that you can't win. This is a complimentary game, football. You need your teammates. You need offense needs defense, special teams, and all the way around the triangle. And the Raiders just can't seem to get it from all 3 phases every game.
Yeah, it was rough. I mean, let's talk about just real quick, just update on the 2 injuries. Colton Miller got rolled up at the end of the game, but Pete Carroll said he sprained his ankle. So that seems to be the best case scenario, because I was thinking, it could have been a knee injury, it could have been Achilles injury. And obviously, as the line starts getting better, it would be a major loss to lose Colton Miller. So maybe he's out for a game or 2. Maybe he's ready for a next game. We'll see. But sprained ankle just seems to be the best case scenario for what it looked like. Eric Stokes has a knee injury. That could be potentially really bad because he was playing at a really high level up until today. And he was playing a good game. And, he just that's been the case with his career so far. It's just, he's been a good player, but he hasn't been able to hold up. So hopefully that knee injury isn't too serious. But, I tweeted after the game that this was an encouraging game, but then it ended terribly. And a lot of people were mad that I said it was encouraging. But the reason why I said it was encouraging is because the Raiders finally showed some life on offense, and they were finally able to run the ball like we wanted them to. So, we've talked about Ashton Genty yards before contact a lot. It's been bad. This was by far the best game. He had 0.8 yards before contact, and obviously he maximized it, breaking tackles and finishing runs. And he made, the Raiders made a lot of the changes that we talked about on this podcast, as far as using pre-snap movement and getting the ball on the outside a little bit more instead of trying to run up the gut so much. On his first touchdown run, they used a fly sweep motion towards the run, and the defense was in man coverage. A man followed the motion across, and he actually got in the way of a linebacker as he was going across the formation, which slowed down the linebacker a little bit, allowed Parham to climb up there and get a hat on a hat and get that touchdown run. So it was an encouraging day for the offensive line. What do you think they did better today?
It just felt like they were more in tune. I mean, outside of listen, the inexplicable fourth down call on their minus side of the field, and looks like they were running duo or just like a dive, and Meredith is like running outside zone left. Outside of that, I didn't see a whole lot of miscommunication, and that is definitely a step in the right direction, because you can't, these plays can't even get off the ground if guys aren't going to the right place and their eyes are not in the right place. And so maybe there's a stabilizing factor of JPJ at right guard, because he also has the center brain that helps with the communication with some of these guys. And then overall, I think, listen, they picked up some really good stunts, gave Geno time in the pocket. Geno was sacked 5 times last week and has been sacked a lot this season, has thrown a lot of interceptions, or didn't throw a lot of interceptions like in that previous game. But then tonight, no sacks and still throws 3 picks, but the O-line gave him time. There was time to sit in the pocket. They had, after, Genty had his runs, a couple of play action shot plays. And so overall, a major step forward for this offensive line. Obviously, the performance was in the gutter, so everything was a step up and was positive. But that's good to see that this unit can advance from one week to the next. It's one thing to know that what's wrong, to know at least some reasons on how to fix it, and they look bewildered. They didn't look bewildered today. And so, we also predicted, though, this Chicago run defense, this run unit, was one that could be had. So to a certain degree, this was to be expected, but it's one thing to expect it, practice for it, know what's coming, and it's another thing to do it. So they did it. Give them the credit for doing it on game day and giving the offense a pep, and a chance to win, because, again, they had a chance to win.
Yeah, and it's a step up. Like, you could build on something like this to see yourself have success. You could build, to build their confidence. And the main thing is there were no communication issues, like you said. Like, you have your physical issues. You might get beat by a guy, but at least they didn't have those major communication issues. They did have a couple early on in the game, like you mentioned, but they did a really good job after that. I mean, there was a play where Geno had a big scramble where the Bears blitzed both linebackers. Meredith was sliding towards the right. He got his eyes back towards the left and stonewalled that blitzer into another blitzer, and that gave Geno the time to get to sit in the pocket and then scramble. So that was an encouraging play. I want to talk about the last play a little bit. When the Raiders were in field goal position, it was 3rd and 2. They were moving the ball because basically the Bears were just crowding the line of scrimmage with a bunch of simulated pressures. Sometimes they brought the pressure, sometimes they dropped out. So they're able to move the ball just through smartly just throwing those little arrow screens. And they had like a little bubble to Trey Tucker as well. But in 3rd and 2, they decided to run the ball. And I don't think running the ball is the worst run, but I hated the call because it was a trap play. A trap play is when you let a defensive lineman go and you try to hit him with a puller. And every time they ran trap against the Commanders, it blew up in their faces. Yeah. And I just don't know why you run trap in that situation, especially against an odd front where you have a bunch of guys up in a line. It's so hard to run a trap against those alignments, and they aren't good at running trap. So I just hated that call.
Yeah, there's very few teams and play callers who force trap. Trap is a reaction to a style of play. Trap is a reaction to jet ends, wide threes, almost 4 eyes, wide nines, where there's angles, there's leverage there, and so you're trying to hold guys accountable who really like to knife gaps. And in that moment specifically, I just wish they had a second call, because when they show simulated pressure, that's just a dirty look. It's just a tough look to run into. Yeah, they might not be good at trap, but trap can still work with bad blocking schemes. That's the whole point, is that sometimes a 3 technique, who's a jet guy, who's got thinking pass, he runs up the field and runs himself out of the play. And so you don't have to be amazing at it, but it's got to be the right look. It's got to be the right call. And I feel like with Geno as your quarterback, you can send in 2 play calls. You're absolutely capable of having a can, having an alert, whether that's to a quick screen after, or you go from trap, hey, this doesn't look good, let's just run zone, give Genty a chance to make a read, press the line of scrimmage and make a read. There's a lot of options there. Obviously, that has to do with, the play clock's running, and there's something you prepare for. But I would like to, then this is the NFL. I would like for them to have a better plan in place in that moment. It just felt like they got so conservative on that drive. It literally felt like they're setting up to set themselves up to kick a 58-yard field goal. Like, yeah, listen, kickers are getting better. They're turning in their own kind of aliens with some of these kicks, but that's not what I'm relying on, especially with the game, especially down by one and the game's not tied. And this is so much, the game is literally on the line with this kick. So it felt like they really went into a shell, kind of handcuffed themselves a little bit there. There's a lot of, I think, plays to be made on the perimeter, both in the run, play action, or just, quick game that could have helped them convert the chains, get a little closer, or go score a touchdown. There's a lot more things they could have done.
Yeah, it was rough, and this was probably the best game that Chip Kelly called to. It was a bunch of good calls in the game that I liked, but unfortunately, it ended the way it did. And let's talk about Geno. He threw 3 interceptions. After the game, he said the guy that needs to be, that the team needs, hasn't shown up yet. So he's taken accountability. He knows that this is on him. He has 2 games so far in which he's thrown 3 interceptions. He had a 3 interception game against the Chargers. But playing for the Seahawks, he's only had 1 3 interception game, and in that game, he nearly threw for 400 yards and 3 touchdowns. So the 2 worst games he's played since coming to Seattle. I don't really count the Jets time because he's, but the 2 worst games he's played in his career since coming to Seattle and the Raiders have been in the last 3 weeks. So. Yeah. Obviously that's something they can't have. I mean, I'm a Geno believer, so I still think that he can put it together. I know it looks ugly right now. But it's yeah, I mean, I don't know what to say other than he hasn't played this bad and now he's playing this bad.
It is. I mean, a lot of people remember the Jets, Geno. I think we attributed more of that, lack of success to the way the Jets were run and maybe still are run. But then he takes some culpability in that. But then it felt like Seattle, he had figured things out. He had been more of a take chances and then take intentional shots quarterback. He had just an incredible couple of years where he was, despite a really rough O-line play, was playing really, really at a high level. And then, this season so far has just been uncharacteristic of Geno. I was watching the post-game press conference with him. It seems like these 2 interceptions, the 2 to Bayard, he mentioned that they were in Tampa 2, and Bayard was the Tampa, usually a back. Same thing we saw with Derwin James against the Chargers, and it feels like these, dime looks where the safety is playing the place of a linebacker have really given him trouble over the middle of the field. I guess he's not. In his mind, he thinks that it's a linebacker body or build, and when really it's a safety, you can cover a lot more ground. So he's taking worse chances that he might not normally take. And so hopefully he gets that figured out. Listen, the league is the league. They adjust to you. They have a book on you. So maybe the book is, hey, if we throw a safety in there in a typical linebacker spot in coverage, Geno won't account for him in the same way he does otherwise. I don't know how else to explain it. Part of the reason I think that we've talked about in previous shows is just the lack of guys getting open continuously. And so that'll always be a factor. I don't think they're going to change that overnight. Trey Tucker, was used in the motion, a lot of pre-snap motion. Only had two receptions, 2 targets. Bowers is still not himself. And so, DK Metcalf isn't walking through the door. A big home run guy, to me, who's a proven guy. We believe in potential in Thornton, potential in Tucker, but a proven guy is not walking through the door. So this offense Geno needs to adjust accordingly. There have got to be some kind of changes that take place in how they call the game. It could be a more short to medium intermediary game, and then we just pick a couple spots where we take the top off. But it feels like Geno wants to take all the shots in the world, and he does not have the personnel right now, and he's forcing it. He's not playing good ball. And with a day like today with Genty coming alive, you can't be the reason that the ball's turned over multiple times. You just can't be. The kid showed out. We texted, we're talking about, he went back to his Michael Myers stance. I don't know if that was him or the coach was like, hey, we want you to be yourself, do what you do. So he's back to his higher stance. I don't know if it's correlation or causation, but it worked today, so maybe he's going to continue that. But when he has a game like today, I mean, he showed his prowess catching the ball out of the backfield. When he produces like that, like you drafted him 6 overall to do, you cannot then go and throw 3 interceptions. It just can't happen, especially against the Chicago Bears defense that could be had. This is not going to happen moving forward. You got the Colts. They're hellacious on defense. This is not going to be able to happen with teams moving forward. This was a game that was winnable from the beginning. They were ahead. I think they were the better team. Caleb Williams threw for 212, but he had the same passer rating. He wasn't great. But you really just like allow this team to steal this game from you at home, just from not all being rowing in the same direction. And this is just becoming a habit, unfortunately, and you hope something shakes them out of it.
Yeah, no, that's a great point about Geno Smith interception, the one against the Chargers being against Tampa too as well. I know for a fact that Quincy Avery, who is Geno Smith's personal coach, he always talks about that pole defender in the cover 2. So in the cover Tampa 2, you have 2 deep safeties, and then you have 1 defender in the middle that's kind of playing in a deep intermediate parts of the field. And it's usually a linebacker.
Right.
But I know Quincy Avery has talked about it where they treat that whole player basically as non-existent, because like you could beat that guy with your throw. But like you mentioned, teams are adjusting and they're putting a safety into the whole player spot. So it's not a linebacker body. So you have to treat that safety with a little bit more respect because he has the athleticism to close that space. And I think we saw that twice, same coverage. He tried to beat that player with throw, but he couldn't make it happen. So that's something he definitely needs to adjust to. But in the end, I have faith that Geno is going to get this fixed. Again, 2 of the worst games of his recent career in these last 3 weeks. So we'll see where he goes from there. And then there's a throw to Dante Thornton, which was low, but it's NFL, man. You got to complete that. You got to catch that.
Sure, absolutely. I don't. There's not much to say. It's just you put it. Worst case scenario, it's an incomplete ball. It's out of his touch, but you can't put it behind him. And he's coming on a shallow. I think it was on a play. And the guy, that was a linebacker that caught it, made an exceptional play, but he shouldn't have been anywhere near that pass.
Yeah. So let's talk about Maxx Crosby a little bit. I mean, I was watching a game, and to me, it was one of the best Maxx Crosby games that I've seen from him. I don't think he had the sack numbers, but like he was literally disrupting every single play, like against the run, knockdown passes. He was forcing Caleb Williams out of the pocket. And then when he had help, they were able to stop him. Whenever Kuntz had a good get off and a good rush, they were able to stop the Bears. Tyree Wilson had a couple nice rushes. But there were some plays where it just seemed like he was by himself out there. And in the end, the Bears, a lot of people think the Bears are a bad team, but offensively, they've been pretty good. Like Ben Johnson has this Bears offense playing well. Caleb Williams has been showing improvement every week. This is probably his worst game of the season, but he was still able to find ways to move the ball at the end of the game. So this is not a bad Bears offense. The injury to Stokes definitely affected them. But they just need a more consistent presence on a defensive line aside from Maxx Crosby because he played his ass off today.
Yeah, I mean, it kind of becomes that simple. Listen, he's so in tune. I keep saying I was posting during the game. He's such an aware defensive end, and like, what does aware mean? Aware means usually when you have a stud defensive end, you're like, all right, he's got a red dot sight on him. We know he's a problem. We're going to send chips at him. We're going to send this. We're going to run zone reads at him. We're going to run screens at him. We're going to make him make decisions all game long and never be right. So what do? They run quick wide receiver screens at him, and he bats it down and he reads it. They try to run zone reads at him, and he makes the quarterback make a really, really difficult read. And then even when he's getting chipped, he makes the second line. He's getting hit by 2-3 guys. He makes them all miss. And even if he's not into the line of scrimmage, the tip pick to himself, he's back off the line of scrimmage. He's folding back. He's reading the quarterback's eyes, reading his release point, and gets his hands up. Like, he's just so aware. And to do that, to bat it, locate the ball, and then intercept it. I mean, it's just like he's making a case to be the best D in the league right now. And just performances like that are just incredible and stellar. And you hope he gets opportunities to close out games. The Chicago went on that long drive to score a touchdown, but there was a lot of stuff on the ground, a lot of scrambling by Caleb. And when that happens, you need a guy to close, but you need help. He needs help. He needs pressure from the other side. When they're running stunts, guys have to stay in their lanes and give Max the opportunity to win, because a lot of times he's beating 1, 2 lineman and maybe a running back. And so, again, there's just limits to what he can do, but he's making impact all over the field. He's literally trying to will the team in that position, which is really hard to do from a pass rushing standpoint because you're just limited. You're not playing offense. You don't have the ball in your hands, but he's trying his damnedest to do it, and he's just exceptional, man.
Yeah. My X factor that I talked about before the game was Malcolm Kuntz, and he was having a really good first half. Started playing well, well in the third quarter, but he just kind of faded off. And I don't know if it's his fault completely. I can't tell from without the all 22, but it just didn't seem like anybody else was creating pressure in that fourth quarter. I think some of it had to do with the coverage. I know they were just giving up way too much space to Ruma Dunze on one play. I don't know if that was Devin White or Kaio Blue's assignment on that play.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, it just stinks to have defensive breakdowns and just no pressure when you need it most.
Yeah, for sure. And then, when you realize that maybe you can't get enough pressure with 4 with another pass rusher, then you start bringing pressure, and that makes you vulnerable on the back end, which, the Raiders are thin as it is. And now with the Stokes injury, they just can't afford that. But, I mean, ultimately, Dunze didn't have an amazing game, but he still averaged 17 yards a catch, had a touchdown for a young guy. It was a really big day. And we talked about him versus this defensive backfield for the Raiders, and he kind of did what he wanted to do. But listen, we can talk about all these things. Max's good day, Geno's bad day, Genty's good day, O-line's good day. But when you have a chance to win and you give it away the way they did, it's just a really sobering moment because we already know the margins are thin in the NFL. And so doing what you can to win, we know it's difficult. I never took wins for granted. I know a lot of the fans do when times are good, but it doesn't matter week to week. It's so hard to come away with a win and to be that close and to not be able to execute, not get the best from your best guys is tough. But to me, that signals a little bit of hope, room for improvement, but it's tough to watch. It's tough to watch them literally let the sand fall through their fingers when they're in control of the game, when they've been the better team, I think, on a given Sunday. So hopefully they get some of these things fixed. And guys, again, continue to progress. We're going to keep talking about this coaching staff. They're figuring things out. We're not on the inside, so we don't know exactly how things are being taught and all that stuff. But you want to see progress on a week-to-week basis. It's like this. It could be like a stock. It could go up and down a little bit, but it's got to trend upwards. And so the O-line did better. Geno did poorly, but that's not like him. So if they can put things together all on offense, on defense, they're a team to be reckoned with. But that's easier said than done, and they find themselves at 1-3 and just staring up at the rest of the division.
Yeah, like you mentioned, it's like one thing goes right and another thing goes wrong, and they have to put it all together. Like they can't have one side of the ball or one aspect of their team playing at a very high level and another just weighing them down. It's just too tough to win in a league like that. After a loss like this, where it feels like they were in control the whole game, there was encouraging signs. Like, how does the locker room react to a loss like this, where it's last second and it just like feels like an arrow going through your heart?
Yeah, I mean, you're just exasperated because you put so much into it prepping during the week, and then while you're playing, I mean, the elation of Genty's having a hell of a day for his rookie, 3 touchdowns. They're like, all right, we're up 24-19, and Caleb Williams has to drive the length of the field. All right, this is, you would like to think your defense relishes that moment to take on a team and do that, and then they just methodically march down the field, and the last play is a stretch on the goal line. It's just like, man, that is definitely deflating. But they'll watch the film. The actual sting of it will wear off, and you'll find the things that are encouraging, because there was a lot there that was encouraging. I think Devin White had a better day. He was all over the field as well on defense. And then you try to get healthy. You'll see where Colton Miller is. Assuming if he's out a game or however many games, Charles Grant will step in, and they'll have a plan for him to step in. Not just, hey, good look out there, kid. Like, have a plan as a play caller for a guy who's raw in that sense and doesn't have many stats. And then build on what Genty has done. I have a fun stat here. Through Genty's first 4 games, He is the first running back in Raiders history to rush for over 100 yards. He had 138 today, and catch 2 touchdown passes in a single game. Man, the kid's special. I was facetiously posting about things that Ryan Clark said, which made no sense to me. And listen, Genty has a lot more room to improve, but this kid has the goods. If you put him in a chance to succeed, in a position to win, he'll give it to you. He's learning pass protection, assignment stuff. So when he becomes a full 3-down back, watch out, because he's on his way.
Yeah, and three things. One, Artem Achueta, who was commentating, made a good point that there were some opportunities he missed, even though I think it's very few in the last few games. It's hard for him to make his reads when he's just constantly getting a bunch of pressure in the backfield, free runners. It's hard to hone in on your reads and see things clearly when that happens. Your head's just all over the place. So today they were able to give him a clear picture, and you saw that he has good vision. He was able to anticipate holes openings and that kind of thing. And two, I love at the end his big run is, I think it was a 64-yard run. I love that he was able to finish that run, even though there was somebody, about to tackle him.
Yeah, Byron caught him and had him wrapped around the waist, and he's just so powerful. He kept his stride, kept his balance. That's rare stuff. A lot of guys get shoestringed, and that doesn't go for a touchdown. And he breaks the tackle and gets in there. So, and then I'll even add to that the touchdown. It was just a little running back option route, like he was kind of a delayed out of the backfield, and he sits down in the zone. And Geno gets the ball to him quick. He's just a tough guy to tackle, man. He's a weapon who's got good hands, got good feel when he's out there, has a nose for the end zone. So I'm expecting him to continue to get better and them to continue to build and prepare game plans around his skill set.
Yeah, I mean, we knew about the contact balance coming from Boise State, but I was wondering, is it going to be as consistent when you have NFL guys? And watching him in space today, yeah, it's going to be pretty consistent. I mean, he was shrugging guys off like they weren't even there. So it was pretty impressive to see and encouraging. And we've been pushing for the Raiders to use him in the passing game, and they finally start using him in the passing game. You can see he's dangerous in space. I mean, and if Miller's hurt, and that's even more reason to get the ball out to him quickly on these little short passes and just letting him work from there. Loss hurts, but encouraging to see that the 6th pick of the draft, the guy that you invested all his money in, he could be special if you just get him some get him some space.
Yeah, definitely. And guys, there's enough veterans in the locker room. I think also Pete Carroll's style, whether you like it or not, is an uplifting, energetic, positive style. So they will correct things, but I like to think they'll get back to work in a intentional way and course correct. But it's just I get the fans' exasperation, man. There's no way to not be. The way that they've kind of come out, they haven't, 2 of the games they haven't even been in. Really, they were fighting their way back against Chargers, Commanders. They weren't even in it. So I understand, the feeling that of giving this one away specifically, but there's still stuff there. There are teams. I was watching part of the Browns game. They've got Joe Flacco throwing ducks, and Dylan Gabriel and Shadur Sanders not sure if they're going to play or if they can play. There are worse situations, I promise you. And so this is a team that can beat. Chargers lost today, if people don't remember. So Kansas City is going to rebound. There's going to be some contention in this division, but you by far are not out of it. And if you show up to play, if you get better, you have enough to win these division games and make some noise. But that means doing things right and playing really, really high level football.
Yeah, for sure. Let's get in some questions. Jorge Meza asked on the super chat. If you guys want to get your question up the board, get in the super chat. How are defenses reading Geno so well? We discussed that within the pod. Marshall made a great point. Part of the reason why he's struggling is teams are playing Tampa 2 against him, and they're putting a safety body in the hole position, and that's a position where Geno typically likes to attack, but it's typically a linebacker there. But now it's a safety body, so it's tough for him to attack.
I'll even zoom out from that. Sorry to interrupt. I'll even zoom out from that. Yeah, that's one specific way, but also on a general basis, there's not a receiver that worries you. And so all they're doing is playing top-down coverage, tight coverage, and they're breaking on all the balls. So if you're Geno Smith, where are you throwing the football? There's just not a whole lot of places right now. And so part of that is figuring out scheme, getting Bowers back to full health where he is dynamic and his routes aren't linear and has more of his speed. And then one of these guys, Trey Tucker or Thornton, have to figure out something out so that they at least are a threat. Just the threat of them running a deep skinny post, a deep over, a comeback on the outside, like some threat that opens up this passing game, because the NFL is too good. People are too good. They're going to hone in on you, and it makes Geno's job hard. And he's still got to be a good quarterback and not give the ball away, but it makes his job hard.
Yeah, absolutely agree. All right, Chris Concha asked, at what point do you bench Geno? 2 losses can be attributed to him directly. That's not going to happen. Like, I promise you, Geno is going to play a lot better, and he's worlds better than Aiden O'Connell. And you guys know I was pushing for Aiden O'Connell last year over Gardner Minshew.
Were you?
I was, over Gardner Minshew.
Oh, Ted.
Yeah.
Okay, that's very over Gardner Minshew. Yeah.
But, I mean, I believe Geno's way better. So
he is way better. And who's Kenny Pickett? Is that what you want? Okay, let's just next question. Yeah.
All right. Should we focus on a rebuild rather than trying to win now? I said this before the season, but it's not quite a rebuild, but you could see where the Raiders were thinking based on how they were spending money. They didn't want to spend money. They could have spent more money to fix some of the glaring holes, but they decided that they were going to have some young players play in and some cheaper veterans. So this is clearly a year where they're trying to find building blocks and not really go all in. And I know it's disappointing here, but I mean, anytime you want to find somebody's intentions or investigate somebody's intentions, follow the money. And the Raiders just weren't spending.
Yeah. Yeah, I think, it's that weird middle ground where I think they're trying to reestablish culture, whether it's Pete Carroll and then, to whatever extent Tom Brady's involved with the team building aspect. They're trying to establish a culture. And so until you know where things are heading, and you know what resources you really do have, I think they're just being a little, and we'll call it shrewd with the pocketbook. And then, I'm sure the draft will be a big one moving forward. But yeah, listen, I have, a moral feeling about, people call it a rebuild, other people call it a tank or whatever. There's guys out there throwing their bodies around. And so like the idea that you wouldn't do your best, not that they're not doing their best, but like the idea that you would like withhold so many resources that the product on the field has no chance, to me is like, it's like a travesty. That is not what they're doing. They have enough to win. It hasn't looked pretty, but they absolutely have enough to win. Geno is a quarterback who can win for you. Guys like Max Crosby are working their tails off and playing their tails off. It's just not coming together right now. And so they'll figure that part out. But I do believe they're trying to have an eye for the future, establishing what this program will be moving forward. But yeah, they're figuring things out. And so I think there's a time element that is involved in how you think about the Raiders, as hard as that is to hear in the here and now. Yeah.
And there's certain teams that will not have patience with developing younger guys. Like, for example, like the Chiefs aren't going to wait around for Darian Porter to develop if he has to start for multiple games. But I think if Porter has to start, I think the Raiders will be willing to let him start and take those lumps. And again, it's not like they're tanking, but at some point you have to develop some of your younger guys. At some point in your team building structure, that has to happen. So I think that's where the Raiders are at. They're not tanking, but like you said, they have the talent to win. But there's gonna be some holes, and they're not gonna just go out and try to swing a big trade, because that's not in the stage they're at right now.
Right.
All right. How can we convince Chip Kelly that his spread shotgun offense he wants to run isn't going to work? He needs to go back to the run game and quick passes to get Geno comfortable. They were under center a lot more in this game. Yeah. And, it's not the Chip Kelly Eagles offense that we saw where it's all tempo shotgun. They're mixing things up. So I think that's
And listen,
unfair to characterize his offense like that.
I feel like the trend is going back across the league for teams that are successful is that when you are under center and you call more pass under center and then you run more play action, you have a higher chance of success. But I don't think necessarily being in shotgun or being in pistol as a detriment, but you still have got to do the fundamental things like pre-snap motion, like, playing with defenders' eyes, getting, better angles for and leverage for your offensive linemen in their blocking schemes. And having your running back know where he's supposed to go and know where runs are supposed to hit, knowing his pass protection, like all that stuff translates from under center to pistol to gun. So you can mix it all up. I'd like to see it continued more under gun stuff. I think that is more conducive to the type of team they have because they don't have, again, just this high flying offense, at least from a receiver standpoint yet. But whether it's, trending towards more under center or not, it's about the things you do while you're under center. It's about the things you do while you're in gun. And so, the pre-snap motion with Trey Tucker was a big deal. I think it didn't have to get fancy with a lot of the orbit motion that we see from Ben Johnson and some of these coordinators. But that's a start. We're about to watch Matt LaFleur, and you're going to see a lot of motion, a lot of eye candy things that linebackers have to pay attention to, safeties have to pay attention to, that get your guys, including Jordan Love, who is a really good quarterback. If he's good enough for it, then I think Geno's good enough for it. So it's just a matter of Chip incorporating those things no matter where the quarterback is lined up.
Yeah, and speaking of a shotgun run game that's really creative, the Packers do a great job at the eye candy while running from the gun.
It can happen.
All right, super chat. Brett Perez asks, Marshall, you think we're better suited to be a zone or gap scheme team? Also, how hard is it to reach a one tech for a center on wide zone? Any tips?
It sounds like you might be a center, Brent, reaching a one on wide zone. Yeah, it depends on left or right. Obviously, if you're snapping, you've got your first hand, your offhand has to be so aggressive and precise. It has to get right into the chest pad. You've got to have control, and your first step has to make up ground. And then a lot of times I've seen the best Jeff Saturdays, they lose a little ground because they get more leverage, and then they run the guy into zone scheme. And then speaking of the Raiders, I think they have the bodies to do more zone than gap, but I think the best lines can do a little bit of both. It's a matchup thing. Again, we talked about trap. Jim Harbaugh's San Francisco 49ers team, they had offensive line coach Mike Solari. They love trap so much that they forced it. They practiced it every day. Now they had big, strong guys. The Raiders don't have the same guys that they had, but they forced trap. But they also ran a lot of gap schemes, so they were built for that. I think the Raiders tailored to Ashton Jeanty, let's not forget that, can be a zone team, especially with Meredith, who's a smaller guy at center. I think JBJ can run either. He did both at Oregon. And so I say lean zone. I think Kelly's style might lean more zone, but you've got guys who can also pull. So pin and pull stuff is gap scheme technically. So we're less in the era of you have to be one or the other, but you've got to be able to scheme and game plan guys and cater to your own players' strengths.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. I would lean more zone too. They just have zone body types, and I think zone is ugly when it doesn't work. I mean, but
it's literally five guys moving and zoning and comboing off, and you have to have everybody on the same page. And when your center's going the wrong way on a freaking duo, then that doesn't work. But so let's get that stuff, happening first, and I guess the rest will slowly work itself in.
Yeah, I think zone has become like a bad word with Raider Nation because they've seen them fail at zone. But if it's coached properly, it's a great offense.
It is.
All right. John S. asks, what would be your revised win-loss prediction after seeing how this team plays under our new staff with their healthy players moving forward?
I'll give that one to you. I don't know if I did a preseason win-loss record on the Raiders, so I haven't thought that one through.
Mine was on a positive end. I believe I said either said 9-8 or 10-7. I would probably walk back on a 10 wins. I think 9 is possible, So I'm going to stay on a positive side. I'm going to say they could get their issues fixed and claw their way to 9-8.
There you go. The positive Ted.
Yeah, can't accuse me of being negative. But that's that's the caveat. If their players get healthy, if they're healthy, I think they can keep climbing and improve.
That's fair.
And last one, this is the smartest Raiders podcast out there. Thank you both for breaking down the games and keep up the great work. So thank you, John, for listening. Thank you, everybody, for listening. It's tough. It's tough to podcast after a loss like this. Tough to listen to a podcast after a loss like this. But we got to keep getting the reps, keep plugging in, and great job, Marshall, breaking down the nuances of the game. I know it's tough for fans, but it's kind of like a therapy session. You get to listen to some of the positives, refocus a little bit. Yeah. So thank you all for joining. Marshall, great job as always, and we will talk to you guys during the week to get us ready for the Colts game.
Appreciate it. See y'all Wednesday.